You look crazy.
No! I hate you now.
Hey, don't do that and say you're sorry. Are you sorry?
No.
Are you sorry?
No.
Are you sure?
No.
Okay. You want a whooping?
No.
You want to take a nap? Okay. You'll be running around here screaming, Yahweh! By yourself, okay?
No!
Don't be playing with me. I'm your grandma. I ain't your little friend. Okay?
It's fine.
Okay.
You're gonna be gone then. Please.
This wasn't a whisper cut on a hot mic. This wasn't a rumor filtered through 3 blogs and a shady group chat. This was loud, raw, and cut on camera in real time. Journey looks straight at Karlissa and says the words nobody expects to hear, especially not on a live. I hate you. And just like that, the internet freezes mid-scroll. No laughing emojis, no slick reactions, just stunned silence followed by total combustion. If you thought family drama peaked on reality TV, this makes the Kardashians look like they're arguing over almond milk, because when a child snaps on camera, the tone changes instantly. This isn't shade. This isn't messy adult chaos. This is emotional fallout spilling into the open where everyone can see it, screenshot it, and argue about it for weeks. And the scariest part, that moment didn't feel rehearsed. It felt bottled up, like something that had been building quietly and finally cracked under the pressure of a live audience. The internet didn't know how to react. So it did what it always does, it reacted everywhere at once. Clips spread faster than explanations. Opinions formed before context even had a chance to breathe. And suddenly, Karlissa wasn't just trending, she was under a microscope. With everyone asking the same question in different fonts, what had to happen for it to get this bad? Because when words like that come out on camera, they don't disappear. They echo, and once they echo online, the fallout doesn't stay contained. It hit the internet like a record scratch in a quiet room, no buildup, no warning, just one sentence that landed heavier than any insult thrown by grown adults who live for chaos. Journey snapped on camera and said, "I hate you," and the energy collapsed instantly. The kind of collapse where the chat doesn't even know which emoji to use. Laughing felt wrong. Arguing felt premature. Everyone just froze, staring at their screens like they'd accidentally walked into a family argument they were never meant to witness. What made it impossible to look away wasn't volume, it was finality. Those weren't words tossed out for attention. They sounded like something rehearsed internally 1,000 times and finally released when the pressure got too high. This wasn't internet beef. This was emotional leakage, live streamed with no edit button. And the moment it happened, the clip became radioactive. Within seconds, the comments shifted from playful chaos to stunned disbelief. People stopped typing jokes and started typing questions. Not the fun kind, the uncomfortable kind. Screenshots flew before anyone could even process what they'd heard. The live hadn't ended yet, but the moment had already escaped, sprinting across timelines like it knew it would never be contained again. And here's the thing the internet understands instinctively. When a child says something like that on camera, the context suddenly matters more than the drama. This wasn't shade. This wasn't clout chasing. This wasn't say it again for the views. This felt like a dam breaking. And once people sensed that, the tone changed permanently. Karlissa's name immediately became the centerpiece of the conversation. Not as a trending topic, but as a question mark. People weren't just reacting to what Journey said, they were reacting to what they assumed must have led up to it. The internet loves a backstory, especially when it thinks one's been hiding in plain sight. Old clips resurface like they'd been bookmarked for this exact moment. Past arguments got replayed with fresh captions. Moments that once felt minor suddenly looked loaded. The silence right after the words were spoken did more damage than any yelling ever could. That pause felt thick, awkward, heavy. The kind of quiet that forces everyone watching to fill in the blanks themselves. And the internet is excellent at filling in blanks. Usually with the most dramatic explanations possible. People leaned in, Closer, not because they expected answers, but because they sensed this was about to get worse. Fans split immediately. One side rushed to protect Journey, arguing that kids don't say things like that without a reason. They framed the moment as emotional truth slipping through the cracks of adult dysfunction. The other side scrambled to defend Karlissa, insisting that the internet was weaponizing a child's words without understanding the full picture. And then there were the people who didn't care about fairness at all, they just wanted to watch. The fallout expand. What fueled the fire was how real it felt. There was no performance polish, no exaggerated theatrics, just raw emotion colliding with a live audience. And raw moments don't need context to go viral, they just need witnesses. This wasn't a clip designed for views. It was a moment that accidentally became content, and those are always the most dangerous. As the clip circulated, the commentary escalated fast. People started narrating the moment like it was a turning point in a long-running series. This explains everything. I knew something was off. You don't say that unless. The theories multiplied, each one louder than the last. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't even about what was said, it was about what people felt. It revealed Karlissa's reactions, past and present, were dragged into the spotlight and dissected like character evidence. Tone, body language, facial expressions, everything became suspect. The internet doesn't just watch, it interrogates. And once it decides a moment is symbolic, it treats every detail like it's part of a pattern. What made this especially volatile was the audience size. This wasn't a private moment that leaked later. This was live, witnessed by thousands. That kind of exposure changes the rules. There's no chance to reframe it quietly, no opportunity to clarify before the narrative hardens. The story forms itself in real time, shaped by whoever speaks the loudest first. And let's be honest, the internet doesn't have patience for emotional nuance. It wants villains and victims, heroes and villains, clean lines it can argue over in comment sections. Journey's words got pulled into that machine immediately, stripped of complexity and repackaged into headlines that screamed certainty where none existed. The irony is that the more people tried to explain the moment, the less explainable it became. Defenders said emotions run high in families. Critics said this went deeper than a bad day. Both sides talked past each other, because the real issue wasn't being addressed at all. This wasn't about winning an argument. This was about a moment that felt too personal to be public and too public to be ignored. By the time the clip had fully gone viral, the damage was already done. The words had outpaced any explanation that could follow. And once that happens, the internet doesn't slow down, it accelerates. Reaction videos popped up, think pieces rolled out. People who had never watched a single live suddenly had strong opinions about family dynamics they just learned about 5 minutes ago. This wasn't just a viral clip anymore. It was a pressure point, a crack that made everyone wonder how much more was hiding beneath the surface. And if this was what slipped out on camera, what stayed unspoken off-screen? Once the clip broke containment, the internet did what it always does best. It turned one sentence into 1,000 storylines. The moment Journey snapped wasn't just replayed, it was repackaged, reframed, and reinterpreted from every possible angle. Slow-motion edits popped up like they were auditioning for a true crime docuseries. Captions screamed context that didn't exist. And suddenly, everyone watching felt entitled to an opinion about a family dynamic they just met 5 seconds ago. Memes arrived right on schedule, because discomfort online has a sell-by date of about 10 minutes. One side of the timeline went silent out of respect. The other side cracked jokes to cope. Both sides fed the algorithm like it was a slot machine paying out attention. That's the paradox of viral culture. Seriousness doesn't stop virality, it just gives it a different costume. The clip traveled faster precisely because people didn't know how to feel about it. Then came the commentary wave. Influencers who hadn't spoken about this family in months suddenly found their voices. Vague posts about kids speaking their truth collided with equally vague posts about not exploiting children for clout. Nobody named names, but everyone knew who they meant. Set tweets became sermons, sermons became screenshots, screenshots became evidence in debates nobody agreed on the rules for. Karlissa, whether she wanted it or not, became the focal point of a conversation that grew sharper by the hour. People didn't just react to the words, they retrofitted meaning onto every past moment they could find. Old clips resurfaced like they'd been waiting in a folder labeled "in case of viral emergency." Tone became testimony, facial expressions turned into proof, silence got translated as strategy, speaking up got labeled damage control. There was no winning lane, just different speeds toward backlash. And then the comparisons started flying. People dragged in reality TV, celebrity families, and pop culture feuds like this was all part of one messy universe. This makes reality TV look scripted. This is what happens when family drama lives online. This is bigger than a clip. Hyperbole ruled the day because subtlety doesn't trend and restraint doesn't get reposted. The wildest part was how fast the internet hardened into camps. If you questioned the rush to judgment, you were accused of minimizing a child's feelings. If you expressed concern about context, you were labeled a defender of dysfunction. Nuance didn't just disappear, it got laughed out of the room. The comment sections turned into gladiator arenas where the prize wasn't truth, but validation. TikTok took the chaos and put it on fast forward. 15-second edits stripped the moment of any surrounding context and replaced it with dramatic music and all-caps captions, reaction faces, shocked pauses, and fake countdowns teased updates. That led nowhere. The more sensational the framing, the more views it pulled. Serious conversations got drowned out by packaging that rewarded outrage over understanding. Meanwhile, defenders tried to slow the narrative down. They argued families fight, emotions boil over, and kids sometimes say things they don't fully understand. Critics pushed back harder, insisting that kids don't speak like that unless something deeper is wrong. Both sides talked past each other because neither was actually listening. They were performing for their audiences, not searching for clarity. What really fueled the escalation was the absence of a clean explanation. No tidy statement arrived to reset the tone. No quick reassurance shut the conversation down. And online, silence is never neutral. It's read as guilt by some, strategy by others, and confirmation by those already convinced. Every hour without clarity became a new angle, a new thread, a new reason to keep talking. As the clip aged, the conversation shifted from shock to speculation. People started asking what this meant long-term, for relationships, for reputations, for the way this family is viewed going forward. The moment stopped being a flash and started being a marker, a reference point people would drag into future debates whether it belonged there or not. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The internet doesn't actually want resolution. Resolution kills momentum. What it wants is continuation. Another clip, another post, another reaction that keeps the cycle spinning. Even nothing becomes something when enough people are watching for it. By the end of this phase, the story no longer belonged to the people in it. It belonged to timelines refreshing every few seconds, reaction channels monetizing the shock, and comment sections arguing themselves in circles. The clip had been absorbed into the machine. And once that happens, the outcome is never gentle. This is the point where the volume drops and the weight sets in, not because the internet suddenly grew empathy, but because the moment stopped being new and started being permanent. The clip didn't disappear into yesterday's scroll. It embedded itself. Screenshots hardened into receipts, reactions calcified into opinions. And what was once a shocking sentence became a reference point people could summon with 2 words and a pause. Remember when, for Journey, the aftermath wasn't something she chose, but it arrived anyway. The internet has a habit of freezing people at their most vulnerable and then judging everything they do afterward against that frozen image. Suddenly, every future appearance felt pre-labeled, not watched measured, not observed evaluated, and the scariest part is that the measuring sticks weren't consistent. One crowd demanded protection, another demanded accountability from adults, a third just demanded More content. None of those demands talk to each other, and all of them apply pressure. Karlissa's reputation took the sharpest turn because narratives always need an anchor. The internet latched onto her not because it knew the full story, but because it needed a focal point. Tone became destiny. Past moments got relit under harsher bulbs. Things that once passed as personality were now rebranded as patterns. And when patterns get assigned online, they're almost impossible to unassign. You can't argue with a vibe once it's been shared a million times. Every move after the clip felt like walking across a floor that might crack. Speak up, and it's damage control. Stay quiet, and it's confirmation. Smile, and it's deflection. Show emotion, and it's performative. The internet doesn't just demand responses, it grades them. And it never tells you the rubric ahead of time. The family dynamic itself became public property. People debated it like a case study instead of a living situation. Threads turned into amateur therapy sessions, others into prosecution arguments. Everyone spoke with certainty, even when they admitted they didn't know the full context. That's the paradox of virality. Confidence grows in proportion to ignorance. The less people know, the louder they get. Then came the subtle consequences, the ones nobody posts screenshots of. The invitations slowed, collaborations cooled. Conversations that used to happen privately suddenly carried an extra pause before replies. In the creator economy, discomfort doesn't announce itself with a headline. It just quietly rearranges who gets calls back. That's when you know a moment crossed the invisible line from viral to volatile. Public perception shifted from reaction to audit. Early outrage is emotional. Late outrage is procedural. People stopped saying, "I feel," and started saying, "I think." And that's when empathy drains out of the room. The audience becomes an accountant, tallying behaviors, scoring intentions, and balancing narratives like a ledger. Nobody wins in that phase because the math never adds up cleanly, and yet the internet kept watching. Because even when outrage cools, curiosity sharpens. The questions changed from what just happened to what happens next. Will there be a statement, a reconciliation moment, a new clip that reframes everything? Or will there be silence? Which online is never just silence, it's a canvas everyone paints on. The cruel truth is that resolution doesn't trend. Continuity does. The machine doesn't reward healing arcs unless they're dramatic, visual, and monetizable. Quiet progress is invisible. Private conversations don't go viral. And so the pressure lingers, inviting a sequel even if nobody wants one. This is how a single sentence becomes a symbol, not because it explains everything, but because it's easy to reference, easy to argue about, easy to use as shorthand in future debates. It stops being about the people involved and starts being about what the moment represents to different audiences. And representation online is sticky. It doesn't peel off easily. For Journey, that stickiness is the hardest part. Kids aren't supposed to carry symbols. They're supposed to carry backpacks and half-finished thoughts, but the internet doesn't make exceptions for age when a clip goes viral. It just presses pause and labels the frame. That's not fair, but fairness isn't a requirement for virality. For Karlissa, the road forward becomes narrower, not because choices disappear, but because interpretations multiply. Every action has a shadow. Every explanation has a counter clip. And even when things improve privately, the public version lags behind, dragging yesterday's assumptions into today's context. What makes moments like this linger isn't malice, it's inertia. The story keeps moving because attention keeps pushing it, even when nothing happens. The absence itself becomes something to discuss, and the longer that goes on, the more the narrative hardens. In the end, this wasn't just a clip, it was a pivot, a reminder that some moments don't explode, they settle. They sink into timelines, conversations, and perceptions, changing how everything else is seen afterward. The internet didn't freeze because it was shocked. It froze because it recognized a fracture. And this is where most people think they can log off and move on, but let's be honest, that's never how these stories actually end. Moments like this don't disappear, they linger, they resurface in comments, get dragged into unrelated arguments, and come back louder every time someone says, "Remember when, if you felt uncomfortable watching this unfold, that's because it wasn't meant to be entertainment, but the internet doesn't care about comfort, it cares about attention. So don't just watch this like it's another clip in your feed, speak on it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because everyone saw something different, and the real conversation always lives in that messy middle where opinions collide. Smash that like button like it owes you money and try to ghost you, because the algorithm only listens when you make noise. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that immediately, because this channel doesn't miss chapters and it definitely doesn't skip the aftermath. This is where moments get unpacked, narratives get questioned, and the stuff nobody wants to say out loud gets dragged into the light without apology. While other channels play safe and water things down, Celeb Sync connects the dots, reads between the lines, and calls out the patterns hiding in plain sight. Let's be real, if you blink during this situation, you already missed something. That's why you need to stay locked in right here, where every viral moment is tracked, every reaction is decoded, and every silence gets translated louder than words. Because the internet never truly moves on. It just reloads, and when the next clip drops, the next line gets crossed, or the next "this went too far" moment hits your timeline, you already know where to be. Welcome to Celeb SYNC, where drama doesn't fade out. It syncs up and hits even harder, even harder.